4, 3, 2.
Hi, I'm Jim Eskin on behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training. My privilege to welcome you to number 19 in our webinar series to empower nonprofits. And this one I've been looking forward to in a long time as we have fundraising royalty with us, and I'm going to introduce her in a moment. But before I do that, I would like to recognize our producer, John Largent, who's CEO of Game Day Media, and he makes sure that we don't have to worry about technology stuff, and I worry about things easy. So John, thank you for the leadership in making this webinar series so smooth, and talk just a moment about logistical issues and particularly how people can type in questions and comments.
Thank you, Jim. If you have questions for Laura or Jim, at the bottom of your screen, if you're on your laptop, or the top if you're on your phone or iPad, there's a place for you to ask questions. It's called Q&A. It's a little chat box, and you can ask your questions there. The sooner you ask your question, the more likely it is you're going to get an answer, because I can tell by this series and today that we're going to have a great conversation. So we want to make sure you get your questions in as quickly as you can. If there are any lags in your internet, we are aware that this is a peak time, and we will do everything we can to make sure this runs as smoothly as possible. Thank you, Jim.
I'm going to give a fuller introduction in just a few minutes, but I'd like to bring in a mentor of mine, Laura Fredricks, who I would like to say is the first lady of the Ask, but to be fair, there's no man that's her equal. And this was kind of a dream come true to partner with her in a webinar. She's in New York City. Laura, thank you for joining us. And let me first ask you, you're coming from an original hotspot. How are your loved ones doing?
Everyone's doing fairly well, Jim. You know, we're New York strong here, so we're still being very vigilant with masks and social distancing. But thank you for asking. But everybody is good, and we continue to just stay careful and healthy.
Yeah. Well, you know, like Laura, I appreciate the way that words are both carefully crafted and the way they are delivered. And I like to start each show with a thought-provoking statement from the past. And to me, the words realize their power in the way that they can lift the spirits of people and move them to do things, usually the right things. And this, of course, is the great British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, who I consider, along with Dr. Martin Luther King, the greatest orators of the 20th century. Churchill said this during the fall of 1941, which was in many ways one of the darkest moments of World War II, as Hitler's war machine was really pounding London every night, sending people underground. France had surrendered, and Britain was in it all alone. And Winston Churchill had this tenacious personality, and he said, never get in. So I decided last night I wanted to do a little more Googling, you know, for great wisdom from Winston Churchill. And it took about an hour. There are so many great Churchill quotations, and I think they apply to us right now. He said, keep calm and carry on. I think that applies to us. And you know what he said, Laura? What do you do when you're in hell? Winston Churchill said, you keep on going. So folks, what do you say? Let's keep on going. And Laura, I want to explain, in our audience, we have a mix of nonprofit professionals, CEOs, directors of development, board chairs, board members, donors, volunteers. And I think they all answer the question, yes, that one person can make a difference. And it's times like this that we need people to make a difference. And we want to take a second. There are heroes all around us. I was speaking to a colleague yesterday in Portland whose husband's a firefighter. Andrea and I have always admired firefighters. I mean, but the people on the front lines in healthcare, in firefighters, police, and now people who are are delivering our food and getting us the essential, we are seeing all sorts of heroes. And I think also there are a lot of heroes in our nation's nonprofits. There are over 1.5 million nonprofits. And Laura, we like saying when nonprofits do well, we all do well. And because we say, can one person make a difference? I don't care if you're the executive director, you're the receptionist, you're the board chair, you're the newest board member. You have a special role to play in touching, improving, and saving lives through your work in your nonprofit, where you were essential before. And I want to tell you, you are more essential than ever. Laura, earlier you said New York strong, and I really believe that. But we started a little mantra, and we ask everybody to type in these words, nonprofit strong, because that's what we believe our sector is, nonprofit strong. So we'd like everybody to type that in. Laura, what are we?
Everyone is as strong as the link that they are.
And we're nonprofit strong.
And we're nonprofit strong.
Inspired Laura Fredricks, in June of 2018, I moved from a fundraising practitioner to a trainer and consultant, and it's been a rewarding phase. And Laura kind of inspired me. You know, people are naturally afraid of asking for a gift, but she kind of inspired me that you can take people who have the Jeffersonian virtues of a knowing head and an honest heart, and we can teach them to be fundraisers with the passion they have for different causes. This is a thrill. We're doing they have Laura on today. We're having webinars every Wednesday. Our kind of sweet spot is Wednesday Central Time, 4 to 5 p.m. And then Laura, we move on to happy hour, okay?
Sounds good.
Zinfandel's our favorite. Laura's been very supportive. I'm proud. I got in by doing a weekly newsletter that I've been able to write several stories with Laura's input. And by the way, we're going to send out the slides and the recording of this, and I'd love to have you in my database. And so if you're not, all you have to do is click where it says click here, and I'd love to add you. And no less an authority than Laura Fredrick has described my newsletter as kick-ass, okay?
Certainly is.
Thank you, thank you. And I'd like to say, inspired by Laura, I wrote my first book last year, and I was bragging a little to Laura. I had a good week. I sold 16 copies, and so I'm only 224,000 copies behind her in book sales. But I'm gonna catch you, Laura. Okay, I swear I'm gonna catch you. Laura, one of the things, you know, we've done 100 live workshops, and we do these nice cyber workshops, and we like to think between the two of us, we bring a lot of information to the table. But the people in the audience, the practitioners, the board chairs, they have a lot of knowledge too. So we embrace the concept of the learning community, because we think between everyone in our audience, we can answer any question you have. Okay, I'm going to move to Laura's introduction, but I first wanted to start it with this. We in fundraising are entering a new frontier. And in some ways, because we were told that the gold standard was face-to-face contact and making the ask. And guess what? In some ways, we're tempted, you have to throw that out, because social distance has forced us to change things. And no longer at the moment can we meet face-to-face. No longer was the gold standard for the ask was looking at the other party, asking them to consider a specific amount for a specific cause, and then Laura taught me to keep it zipped. Well, sorry, we can't do that. And we had statistics, by the way, that when you asked face-to-face, you were so much more successful. But those days for the moment, and what do we do, Laura, when we got a gift? We shook hands. I don't know when we're going to shake hands again. So we moved the virtual fundraising. But I think in many ways, it's a hybrid that we can embrace a lot of the principles and the best practices and the strategies, such as the four-part gift cycle. We just have to do it in a different way. Major gifts still is by far the most efficient and productive way to raise money. And still, if you can't hug people physically, we'll hug them virtually. The more contact's still going to lead to more money. Okay, I could spend a lot of time bragging on Laura, and but I know, first of all, nobody else on the planet who is more respected and admired for their knowledge about the art and science of asking. And I'm just going to take a few words for her. I could go on for 10 minutes. I'm going to cut it down to 1 minute. But she is the voice of the ask. And as she puts on her website, the ask is your gateway to success in every aspect of your life. Now, we're going to look at it through the prism of nonprofit life, but this is also for a more fulfilling personal life, a better paying job, more sales, more money, better personal relationships. Asking is about everything you can do. Laura started as a lawyer and in Philadelphia, and she was recruited to raise money for their bar association. And I don't know exactly when she made the switch, but then she became an inspiring preacher for the act of asking. And she has put it in the printed word, she's put it in the treated word, she's put it in social media. She has spoken at so many conferences, I don't think she knows even how many they are. But on a personal level, and believe it or not, you're going to hear from Laura now in 15 seconds, she has inspired so many people like Jim Eskin, so many practitioners to reach higher in our fundraising careers, and in my case, to become a consultant and trainer. So Laura, again, I consider myself one of the million co-chairs of the Laura Fredrick Fan Club, okay? So if it's okay, we have about 15 questions. We're gonna check where we are around 3:40. We're gonna make sure we're gonna get the audience into this. Some of Laura's answers might just take a minute or two, some might take longer. She is the expert of that. So Laura, are you ready to start with the questions?
100%.
And again, thank you. Folks,
No,
we have the sensei, I guess, the master of the martial arts. So, okay, let's jump to the bottom line, okay?
Okay.
First question, what's the biggest difference in making a virtual major gift ask versus an in-person major gift ask?
The big difference is we're just used to the feel and the sense of it, Jim. I mean, when you're in person, there's like a cadence that takes place. We know when people's breath stops. We can almost hear it. You can feel it. And there's a lot of, tripping over each other that can happen, even in delay of technology, like you and I are speaking right here, right? Yeah. So the big difference is, for me, the feel factor is gone. But when that's taken away, other senses have to be really, really enhanced so that we don't miss great opportunities and all the intonations that people will be making. It's just at a distance.
Talk about those other senses.
The biggest sense for me is, and I've learned a lot, this has been a very rough period for everybody on the planet since March 17th on. But I like to look at it this way. What have we really learned to date, And a couple things I've learned, and that is I've got to stick to the rule on listening. And that is with any conversation and with any ask, you talk 25, they talk 75. And it's even more important now because people want to be listened, they want to be heard, they want to share. There's so much that they can enrich you and what we're talking about, even beyond asking for money or any ask, whether that's to be a board, a committee, help to do a virtual event. So listening is number one, absolutely number one. And I've taken a real step back and a pause to wait, because really you could absolutely watch people's lips move, and when you're about to talk. Sometimes via Zoom or other things, you really have to pull back and listen, let it pause, and then speak.
And I've even noticed in this series, I'm from Boston and we tend to be Budinskis, but it's like when you're watching the TV, newscasters from overseas, you know, there's a lag time. And I think there's a lag time when you do Zoom. And so you have to be even more patient in your listening.
You do. You do. The other piece I want to talk about, Jim, is I've seen too much of people not paying attention to their physical presence and how they look as they would have done if they were in person. So I'm always coaching. I'm coaching people that where's your eye level? Yeah. Like right now, and I'm standing, you know, my number one rule, Jim, right? If we're going to do this, stand up. If it's at a distance, whatever, because your voice is higher, right? Good energy. But the eye level, I mean, the camera of your computer really needs to come like literally a little bit above your eyes and in between your two eyes. So many people, have you seen if they look down? And what is that subliminal message is? You're looking down. And so what is that? So we really have to, as much as you would, you know, dress the part, think the part, look whatever, you have to do just as much on a camera through a computer to make your ask even more effective.
Yeah. Well, major gift solicitations, virtual and in person, depend on the strength of the relationship. How do you know a major gift prospect is ready for a virtual solicitation?
The same rules apply, Jim. You wouldn't just walk in someone's home or office that you didn't have the relationship, they didn't know, like, and trust you, and start asking for 5, 6, 7, 8-figure gifts. You just wouldn't do it. So the same rules apply here. But I'm going to say something in the warm-up to finding out if someone's ready to be asked. My new rule, my second rule, is your tone is as important as your words. And especially now, each day, each hour, circumstances change. You don't know if someone saw a news show and it really affected them. You don't know if they pick up the phone and a loved one might not be feeling well. You don't know if someone just lost their job or their business is now merged or out of existence. It's the tone. And so you constantly have to say, you know, just as you started with me, how are you? How's everyone doing? You always have to start with that. And you can't take for granted that you might have known that last week because things change.
Yeah. Who should be involved in making a virtual major gift solicitation?
Well, you know my rule, Jim. It's anyone that the person knows, likes, and trusts. That's the rule, right? You can't stick in someone brand new. You can't say, well, this is a humongous ask, so naturally a bored person should be in. But if they don't know the person, like the person, trust the person, that's chemistry for disaster, okay? So it's know, like, and trust. Those rules are still the same, whether it's virtual or in person.
Let's flip that around. And who should be on the receiving end of a major gift solicitation?
The person who can make the decision. And so, you know, we've gotten better, and I hope people have gotten better with this, is asking really good questions way up in cultivation, whether it's a virtual cultivation now or cultivation. You've got to ask those important questions way up front. And one of them is, like, when you make your philanthropic decisions, who else is involved? Because you don't want to assume because we're talking, they're the decision maker. So if they say, I always involve my children, well, then the children have to be on the screen that you're asking, right? So
in some ways, isn't the virtual environment makes that a little easier, doesn't it?
Well, it makes it certainly easier to get the appointment. Remember, half of our boulder up the hill was just scheduling, right? Now, you know, pretty much people are at home and pretty much you can get them. You know, either during a break or before they work, or, you know, everyone is really on virtual hours too. So in some ways, it's a lot easier to be asking because people are more available. They're simply not traveling.
Hey, should the length of time for a virtual major gift ask be planned and managed differently than an in-person major gift ask?
Before I would have said no, and now I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Because things change. Monthly, they change, right? And so we always have to take the external things that are going on and bring them into our work. Right now, I've seen people, first of all, we're all doing work this way. like you and I right now.
Hmm.
So the person that you want to ask, by and large, doesn't want to spend a whole hour with you on the phone that you might have done during lunch or for a walk or on, the golf course, whatever you are. They don't have that kind of time, nor do they want to spend another hour looking at a computer screen. Okay.
Mm.
So virtual asks are getting much shorter than you would have done in person, right? So if you've done your homework and they know why you're coming and what you're about to ask for, it really is a very abbreviated yes and no. And in the same light, people are making decisions much faster.
Hmm.
I'm not getting a lot of, I have to think about it. I'm getting a yes or not now.
Hey, that's a good thing, isn't it?
It's fantastic. You know why? Again, a silver lining to all this, people really dug deep and thought, what's important to me?
Hmm.
Where do I want to be remembered? Where can I really make a difference? They thought a lot about this, Jim. And so if you're the group that they really, really admire, you're going to get it right away. If you kind of was, well, I did support you, I'm not that crazy about it, they might say, well, circle back or whatever, or I can't do it now. But the decisions are made much, much quicker. And we have to be ready for that.
Okay, here's a popular question. How much should determine, what should determine how much we're asking for? And more essentially, should you think in different amounts for a virtual ask than an in-person ask?
No, everybody is their own mini campaign, and you have to have an exact amount that you want to ask
Sure.
that person for, whether it's live or virtual. But one thing I'm going to overlay with this, Jim, and that is I'm a big advocate of groups doing monthly plans. I'm happy you
Yeah.
had a strategic plan. I'm happy you want to do 1, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever. But what's going to be your guidepost are these monthly plans. That gives you the backing that when you ask a person in August for a significant gift, you refer to your monthly plan and saying, right now, we need X amount for August, and we're asking you for this gift, and it will do this. It's like a 1, 2, 3. What drives asks and what should be driving asks now are real numbers in real time with real need. And where is it going to go immediately? They don't want to know this is going to help someone next year. It's right now.
It's okay if I ask you some tough questions?
I want the tough ones.
Okay. Are there any circumstances do you see where it would be appropriate to ask for a major gift in person in the foreseeable future?
I wish I had my crystal ball, but I think that's all going to be dictated by safety standards and people's comfortability about meeting in person. It's a two thing. It's not either or. It's not we get the vaccine in January and everybody is good to go. There are going to be plenty of people that still have a great deal of hesitation. And, with 150,000 plus people, unfortunately, who are no longer with us in the United States, that's a lot. It's a big burden. And it's affected people in many, many, many different ways. And we have to be sensitive to that. So I don't have the answer. I know that varies state to state. But more importantly, it varies the person's sensibility and comfortability with it.
I mean, the major gift prospect's not going to allow you in there unless they're 100% comfortable with it. Probably
Exactly
200% comfortable. How do we make sure that the major gift prospect is comfortable with the technology and there won't be the hiccups that, sometimes we endure with technology? Again,
we learned that early on. So hopefully between these months now, you've contacted your top people, you asked them how they are. That includes your board, by the way, how they are, and in those general, use that. It's still cultivation, Jim. We can't take it away just because it's not in person. But in those cultivation conversations, it's like, do you like Zoom or are you better on the phone? This is what I get. I can do Zoom up till 2:30, and after that, I just want the phone because I have to check out. Now we know. If you schedule a time to talk to them and you want to do an ask and it's 3 o'clock, you do it by the phone. If someone says, no, this is much better, I can see them, I feel connected, I feel like I'm important, you do it by Zoom. We would do it the same way. You know, if you want to know where you're doing the ask, it's always a place that the person's most comfortable. And for us, was that home, office, restaurant, walking, whatever. We do the same types of questions as we're doing it virtually.
This leads right into the next question. How much do you think is compromised if it's just going to be an audio as opposed to a video conversation?
If the person feels much more at ease on the phone, nothing is compromised, okay? If we don't get that right, it is compromised, and it's just one question that can just bring it to light, and that is, do you feel more comfortable talking to, on important issues? And they'll say, what they'll say, Jim? Oh gosh, Jim, depends on the time of day. In the morning, I'm good to go. After 5 o'clock, I don't want to see a computer screen for love of money. And now I'm constantly saying, what are the external forces we as fundraisers have to be aware of? And right now, the August-September issue is, what will back to school look like?
Yeah.
Now, you may think, your donors don't have children, but maybe they have grandchildren, or maybe they're doing it with their neighbor or something like that. And so that is going to be another exploratory issue that we have to say, would 5 o'clock be okay? And they'll be like, nope, I'm on the dinner crew, so nothing after, after 7. So that just these little slightly, subtle questions will line you for the time and the type of vehicle that they want to be asked.
When we are scheduling a virtual major gift ask, do we tell the prospect that's the purpose of the meeting?
The rule is still the same, Jim.
Yeah.
You have to say, I'd love to continue the conversation about the opportunities we've been talking about. Can we schedule something 5 o'clock, whatever? Now, here's my caveat. You always know I have a but. People have said, no, now's good, let's go it. When you're doing the pre-ask meeting, you have to be ready that they're like, no, Jim, now's good, what's on your mind? And you've got to be ready to go. I cannot emphasize enough, people are making decisions and doing things on a much shorter scale than we normally are used to. And so my third theme for you is preparation wins the day. You've got to be prepared that any conversation you pick up, people say, and here we go, we'll take this slowly. What do you need? How can I help? What can I do? When you hear those 3 questions, it's time to ask, you go. Don't skip over those.
Repeat those for a moment.
What do you need? How can I help? What can I do? I learned this the hard way. I learned by my mistakes. I skipped over it every single time. Well, Jim, as you know, we had to anticipate, and you start going into all the plans again. When they're saying, get to it, what is it? What is it?
Like in real estate transaction, gift solicitations are all in the closing. So what do you recommend for closing a major gift ask virtually?
This happens faster too. Just say, you have to say, how do you feel? What's on your mind? What's your timing for this? My big suggestion about closing is, I'm here to help you. How can we work this out? You can't just ask, step back, and get another meeting. I'm here to help you. How can we work this out? It's like the ask is a group hug. Bring them back in, right? And they tell you, well, I've got some work issues, and I normally don't do this in the summer, but September, and now it's kind of like the timing. So just keep asking those questions. How can I help you? Let's work this out together.
Let's talk a little about the nonprofits that aren't directly providing COVID emergency relief. How can they instill urgency in their conversations?
If I had a quarter for every group that asked me that in April, I would own Manhattan, okay? Everybody came to me and said, we're not a hospital. We're not a food bank, because what did we all see? The lines in food bank in San Antonio was very depressing. Very depressing.
It was.
As many cities are. and have been and unfortunately continue to be. But if you've got your cause, and again, you have to drive it with numbers, okay?
Yeah.
What do you need this month and what will it do? And it's up to that person to decide, because that's urgency. These monthly plans are urgency, okay? And it's even like, right now, for us to be operating to fulfill our mission, and that's totally fine, we need X amount of dollars, and people get it, okay? So that's all I can say is everyone can convey a sense of urgency driven by numbers, and everyone has to stand up and feel enormously proud that your work is worthy of anyone's support now and in the future.
To stretch giving capacity, what are your recommendations on bringing up the possibilities of a blended gift which has both current and deferred components?
Great. My thing is, I'm going to go back to these plans, and I've seen this. Do you need the money now or do you need the money later? And the answer 99.9% of the time is I need it now. And if you do need it now, I wouldn't mention the plan gift unless that's a vehicle you've been talking about before, or that's something they want to do. And I have nothing against plan gifts. I love them and they're great. But right now, if you have urgent needs to get you through the year and much of next year, it's all about, and your treasurer and your CFO will kiss me, and that's quite a way. I'll take that too. It's about cash flow. And unfortunately, plan gifts don't provide cash flow. And so if you have the urgent need to have cash flow, I wouldn't talk about plan gifts unless that's what they want to do, and then you have the conversation.
You said bring on the tough questions. If you have a donor say, my finances are pretty good right now. The stock market is holding up remarkably well. I just don't know about the future, and that makes me reluctant to commit for the future. How do you suggest a nonprofit leader respond to that?
Acknowledge it and acknowledge their honesty. Say, thank you for sharing that. You didn't have to, and we greatly appreciate it. But we want to work with you when the time is right. And we hope that's sooner rather than later, because we have, and you go back to your plan, right? But this is your comfort level and what you want to do. But please know that we're having these conversations with many people because this is where we need to go. So let's keep the conversation open. My end, I promise to keep you on top of everything's happened. For a lot of groups I work with, Jim, like every 2 months, we do a 1-page impact report. Nice and simple, pictures, so you keep that person going. But if they've said that to you, what choice do you really have? Say, now, come on, the stocks are good. Now, it's ridiculous. You acknowledge it, you thank them for their honesty, you pledge that you'll keep them on top of it, and you will keep the conversation going.
We have a lot of board members. I know we have our friends from the Assistance League. What are good ways to engage board members in virtual fundraising?
Right. I'm very, very sensitive to this issue because I've had a lot reach out to me and just say, I want to utilize my time, but I've got some issues. For everybody out there, you have to treat your board member like you would a donor, and that's separately and distinctly. You can't get on a big Zoom call with the whole board and say, okay, we need you to, it doesn't happen. You wouldn't go to, 12, 13, 17 donors on a Zoom call and say, we all need you to make gifts of 25,000 or more. You just wouldn't do it. So please don't do it with the board, because they need more respect than that. I do know that board members like a to-do list with a time frame and suggested language. A to-do list with a time frame and suggested language. Most of the people that I work with over the past couple months, I just had them make 5 thank you calls, but I scripted it. Here we go, and that's fair. And I cannot tell board members this thank you call is going to pay off dividends. It might not seem like it's a lot, but that's it. The second is, suppose you're doing a virtual event and you don't have the expertise, or you don't have the technology, or you don't have a John in your back pocket, okay? Do you have access to something like that? I mean, just take a look in your monthly plan. What are your needs? And then ask your board members, and they feel good because they're helping you. you know, and again, it's got to be a one-on-one conversation. Is it time consuming? You bet. Does it pay off? You bet.
Hey, how should proposals and collateral material be used in the virtual environment?
I do it the same as I would one-on-one.
Yeah.
I never have paper at the ask, ever. They are leave behind
Hey,
pieces.
repeat that. I think
I
that
never have paper at the ask. Again, we're going to do this as we started this webinar. Where does everyone's eyes go? Down. Is that where you want it? I can't see you. I can't judge it. Are you in this with me? Are you distinct? You don't need it because you're there to have the engagement. Now, I do have paper, and when I started is everything I'm about to say, I have as a leave behind piece. No need to memorize anything. And watch how the donor relaxes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Half of the times, Jim, in the past, we were getting, I have to think about it because we have talked this so much, they don't even know what the ask is. And the easiest answer is, sure, I'll think about it. And then I'll go back and think about what it is I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And just leave the paper as a leave behind. Virtually, say I'm happy to send this in an email. Thank you email, attachment, you're good to go.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Hey, do you feel it's appropriate for a nonprofit to state that the gift funds are needed to retain staff positions?
I do, but it's how you do it. And
Yeah.
again, this is a little bit of work. You have to go back and say, you know, since March 17th, you know, we had X amount of employees and this was our budget. Step number one. Step number two, we did or did not get, you know, the PPP or assistance from the government, because people like to know the exact amount you receive. They want to be in this process with you. So don't ignore it. I mean, we either did or we didn't. And then you can say, unfortunately, that was not enough to retain the salaries over time. You know, our big fundraiser was supposed to hit April, May. We didn't have time to do it virtually, which we hope to do later. Just be transparent about it and say, right now, we have strategized that to bring back these two people will really benefit us throughout the end of 20 and half of 21. And so we're looking to raise X amount of money to bring them back on our team. Then that's a lot different than saying, we need to raise money for salaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you do it.
No surprise, Laura, you're doing great on time. Your pacing is absolutely perfect. I have a few questions left, but John, do we have some questions from the audience? And we're going to have a wrap-up section that I'm going to bring Laura back in, but this would be a good segue. Do we have some comments or questions from the audience?
Yeah, a comment from Joel is, how do you deal with negative remarks?
With a smile, especially now. You know, the thing is, this is what I used to say, when you receive a negative comment or a criticism of something that wasn't done or how it was handled, you have a best donor in front of you. Think about it. They didn't have to tell you their reaction. They didn't have to get angry with you. They could have just ignored you. And I learned that later in my career, that these people really all they want to do is be heard. So all you have to do is recognize it and say, I heard what you said. Unfortunately, I'm sorry you feel that way. And that's it. Just acknowledge it.
Yeah. How are we, John? Do we have some other questions? And
that's it for right now.
Okay, I want to, and I'm going to bring Laura in on the summation, but I still have a few more. Laura, under what circumstances would you recommend nonprofits team up to make a joint request of a funder?
I've seen more collaboration happen, and I'm 100% behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is a lot of boards sometimes aren't for it, and I understand why. Because sometimes they feel that we could just go in ourselves and get this money ourselves. And I understand it, which is why you have to explain the only reason a funder may be interested is because you're partnering. And there's one thing I do know about foundations is the more you partner, the more money you'll receive, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And again, this is another tough question. Fingers crossed, when we finally get to the other side of this crisis, do you think the changes in fundraising and the comfort of, we would never do a face-to-face major gift solicitation a year ago. Never, you know. do you think fundraising is forever going to be changed when we get to the other side of this crisis?
I do, and I hope so. And let me tell you why. I just did a piece on what are the top 5 things we should continue doing long after the crisis disappears. And part of it is, I think everyone really got into a very, I don't want to say relaxed, but we really did an assessment of what matters to us and how we could be better at our jobs. And I've seen creativity at an all-time high. I want to make sure that stays. I've seen ingenuity at an all-time high. I've seen board members step up and say, I know, I'm responsible. A lot of good is coming out of this. But what happens is we have the tendency just to turn around and I want to go back to my fundraisers. I want to go back to my quarterly board meetings. And you know what? If working virtually is working for the team and they feel empowered, good. I've seen more teams be cross-functional because now I might have to do direct mail and virtual events where before I was just doing blank. And so I really, really hope that people harness what we've had. I, for one, would love to go in a day or 2 a week and see the team, but the other 3 days, if I could work from home and on, fine. It's going to be a hybrid. I don't think we're going to go back. It's going to be a hybrid.
Yeah. John, and we're going to go into a little wrap-up section, and I'm going to ask Laura to step in on that. But do we have any other questions before we move forward?
Yes. I am new to the city and a company I work for. In fact, I started right when COVID hit in our city. Is there a way to start relationships when the initial contact feels virtual and therefore potentially cold?
That's a good question.
It's a good question. Yes. And so use the new kid on the block to your advantage, right? Use it to your advantage. I always say anyone in a new job, you can get in the door much easier than someone's been there 5, 6, 7 years. Just say,
the honeymoon, right?
That's right. I'm new to the city. And remember, keep your remarks to 3 bullet points. I'm working for X and we do blank, blank, and blank. I want to learn more about you and the opportunities here in this great city. Can I have a little bit of your time? I've learned that people will give you time and talk to you if they feel they are giving you something of value, not you dumping information on me. So you have to be this little interviewer, like Jim Eskin is right now, and saying, tell me what I should know. This is where we're at. Who else should I talk to? You can have fun with this process. Really use your newness to your advantage.
I love that answer. John, before we go to our wrap-up section, and by the way, we can still go to some questions in the final moments, but any other questions right now?
Yeah, a couple of comments and questions. One is, thanks for all the wisdom today, Laura. I've missed it from you. That's from Tim. And
I missed you too, Tim.
And Deborah is asking, not an ask question, but general fundraising. Is this a time to introduce prospects to our organization? If so, how?
You want, yes, and yes. You want as many people to know about what you're doing as possible. Because I'm going to say one thing, and this is my last golden nugget for you.
Yeah.
When things are so chaotic and out of control, giving gives people control. They are looking for a home. They're looking for a place.
I think that you had a lot of gold. That is a lot of carrots on that one. Repeat that again.
When things are very chaotic, confusing, and out of control, the act of giving gives a person control. They can say, out of all of this, I can do this, and I feel good. I can't just watch the news and go to bed and then say, I didn't do anything. That's why, Jim, and here we go, from April 1st to date, $3.8 billion was given out of donor advised funds from Fidelity. Okay?
Wow.
At a time when just Fidelity alone. At a time when no one would fault anyone for not doing a thing. And they stepped up, right? Why? Because people wanted to do something. And it was to a myriad of organizations. It wasn't just food banks and hospitals. Okay? So giving gives you control. So give them the opportunity to support you. Tell everybody what you do. And board members on this webinar, share your story in 1 or 2 sentences. Why out of the 1.5 million registered charities are you here? That is like flypaper. It's magnetism. People are like, wow, you selected this group? This group's got to be really good. Okay? So giving gives you control.
You know, it strikes me too, giving gives you control at a time when our world doesn't offer much control.
Exactly. And you can take it back by giving.
That's a great point. By the way, we're going to summarize, and John, if there are some final questions, we'll let them in. Laura's pacing was absolutely perfect. Laura is a lawyer, but I don't know, told you, I put this in every presentation. I love your quote that philanthropy is not a zero-sum game. And those of us who have been in this business for a long time, we will tell you folks that the donor will get more satisfaction and fulfillment out of that gift than the benefactor. You're not taking anything away. And again, I don't know, we got so many golden nuggets from Laura. I took this out from one, and maybe we got some time. Maybe you want to talk about the nuggets on the screen right now.
Great. The first one, hunt for clues. I would rephrase that as people leave clues and we miss every one of them. But if you're the real listener, you are like jumping over. What do you need? How can I help? What can I do? Clue, I'm ready. And what do? We jump over them. So by listening, you won't miss the clue. And then reading between the lines is like, what are the people really saying? And if you don't know, ask them. If they say, well, you know, the timing's not good, don't jump to their business is bad. Maybe they suddenly have to take on 2 kids to live with them, which is very common, okay? So, you know, drill down a little bit by gentle questions. And my formula for the ask, it's always 2 sentences and a question. Keep it simple. And, you know, when you hear no, all you have to do is find out the why, because you can turn that no very easily if you dig into the why.
Yeah. And again, that's virtual or in purpose.
Correct.
These gold nuggets apply evenly. And what we're saying, would you agree, this is the last time for a nonprofit to take their foot off the gas pedal, no matter what their mission is, and to stop communicating with donors and to stop cultivating them and stop soliciting and to watch what others are doing. Keep your foot on the gas pedal.
100%.
And here too, and I think actually we might have a little, I need to get some insight from you. Philanthropy is resilient. You know Melissa Brown, who edited Give You in USA. I had her on about 6 weeks ago. And she referred to philanthropy then, that was about 6 weeks ago, was actually responding better than it was to the recession of 08 and 09. I mean, there's still major gifts being made, as we're seeing, and by some people who never stepped up in the $1 billion category.
Exactly right.
And something you taught, the name of the game, we love corporations, we love foundations, but folks, you go fishing in the pond of individuals. Not only is that 68%, but bequests are individuals who have passed on, and probably half of these foundations are family foundations, and you add up 68, 9, and 9, I think something like 88%. So again, your prospect, you should be speaking to individuals.
I agree. And Jim, what I want to say about the 5% corporations, because we both have worked with groups that do 80% fundraising with corporate sponsorships, and we love the partnership, what it is.
Right.
But I want to tell you that 5% of corporations, of that 5, 2% is cash, 3 is in kind. Cash is king, cash flow. Why would you spend 80% of your time trying to get corporate dollars? We love corporate partners. I am not saying that, but if it's a cost benefit and a time management, we do individuals.
And my experience usually is that your decision making is quicker from individuals and corporations and foundations. Would you agree?
That's right. That's right. And the caveat to all this, Jim, is that foundations and corporations are changing their giving cycle. They're changing their giving purposes. I mean, it's much more work. It's worth it, but you have to call every corporate and foundation partner and say, are your cycles still the same? Are your areas of giving still the same? It's a must.
Yeah. And the other, what do you see? You know, it used to be the 80-20 rule apply in fundraising, that 80% of the gift income came from 12%, it came from 20% of the donors. And just a couple of years ago, we've updated that split now to 88-12. Where do you see that trend going?
Well, for the highest gifts, for major gifts, it's probably going to be 90-10.
Yeah.
But for, and I hate to use this word, for gifts that we are not of a magnitude, right? I think you're going to see a lot because so many people stepped up to do gifts for a lot of groups that it's going to be a real snapshot to see what 2020 is. But for the mega gifts, I think that 88 is going to go sky high. But you're going to see for the gifts of, I'm just going to put it like 20,000 and below, you're going to see a tremendous amount, an uptick in the number of donors.
Laura, wouldn't you agree? We're seeing plenty of affirmation that major gift officers, directors of development, and other staff, they can be very, very effective working from their home office.
They do.
Doing all the right. And talk a little about that.
Well, I think we as supervisors and bosses have relaxed, because the biggest fear is, how do we know people are doing their work, right? I mean, that was a big thing. It's like, oh, they're going to be, you know, running, going to the gym, doing laundry, cooking, you know, that was it's like, and they're not working 8 hours. Well, you know what? They probably are working even more because they're on that flexible schedule. You know, we've been in consulting how long? I've been in since, you know, 2008. I work every Sunday because for some reason I'm so productive then, and I have no idea why. And it's counterintuitive to what we used to do. But I feel and I see with the people I work with, you're getting much more, again, of that creativity and of that like check-in with people. You can't take for granted that people know what you're doing because you're not passing by their desk. And I just think, you know, all the people I talk to, they love working from home.
And, you know, that creativity doesn't stop at 5 p.m.
No.
Sometimes it can be inspired by a glass of something that's your favorite. And I would say too, you know, we can't get people physically into our hug, but I think we're seeing a step up in what we're calling virtual hugs, because I think you were saying, Laura, probably we have a much better chance. The toughest thing before was getting the time of your major gift donor. I don't know, what was it, like 85%? Well, guess what? They're much more available now for those virtual hugs.
Yep, agreed.
And we like using this. What are you doing today? You're calling if you have family in other parts of the country. You check in, you know, how are they doing? Tell them how you're doing. Is there any way you could help? And I always followed Laura's cue. Treat your donors like family. Check in. How are they doing? Let them know what's happening. How is COVID-19 impacted the provision of the services from the nonprofit? And ask your donors, how can you help them?
Exactly.
I got to tell you, I think a lot of directors of development have moved ahead by holding the hands of maybe some older, and I don't mean to, I'm one of those people, you know, to say that aren't as intuitive to technology, and they've held their hands and they've helped them learn how to use Zoom and other of these video conferencing tools. And what does that do? That makes the major gift donor have a better relationship with the nonprofit, but they're going to appreciate reaching out to loved ones. So this is a great window of opportunity for major gift officers. And Laura, would you comment? I know there's a temptation sometimes to see, let's watch what others are doing. But one of the things we're counseling is boards and management staff to get together. We live in a world in which obviously what we don't know is a lot more than what we do know, but every nonprofit knows how they're impacted. Nonprofits should be speaking much more often than they were between board, management, and staff.
I have to tell you, Jim, this is an excellent, excellent time to recruit board members. Again, people want to be able to say, I helped.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to challenge everybody on this webinar to take a look. And I have a matrix that I do with board members. Where are the skills that you're missing, and recruit for it? Don't double up on real estate. Don't double up on finance. Maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's tech. Maybe it's something. This is an excellent time to recruit board members because people are going to step up.
That's more gold. I love that nugget. And you know, sometimes too, when you look at long-term value, but the Laura Fredricks will tell you, getting the right board members actually can produce more long-term dollars than getting the right donor.
Agreed.
You mentioned this before, but I think another thing, you said maybe it's after 2 o'clock. We should be sensitive to computer screen fatigue. And I know too, sometimes when I'm talking to people and I give them a choice, you know, I have no problem just doing, when you already know the person,
Right.
I don't think you have, I think it's nice to do video conference, but sometimes maybe you just worked out and, you know, you'd rather just do an audio call. And I think
a lot of times I just tell people to call me, because remember, it's not just their work. They might be helping their kids or their grandkids with online learning in school. I mean, it can go on and on and on. So just be sensitive to how they want to talk.
Yeah. You know, when you were talking to about giving donors control, I think we're in a world now in which if your nonprofit has some positive stories to get out virtually or by email or by text or by smokescreen or whatever your communication is, share that. There are heroes. There are board members, volunteers stepping up. Put a spotlight on those. We need more positive stories. And let's face it, I don't know about you, everyone needs a way to brighten their day. Laura and I were talking about pets. I've always believed that pets do more for us than we do for them. You know, and I don't have to keep social distance from my 2 cats. You know, so ask someone about their pets, you know, if they're at home, and find a way to brighten their day. And would you say, Laura, I take so many things from you. At the bottom of the day, our job is to inspire donors about what their gifts will do. And that hasn't changed.
Nope, and it won't. And it won't.
And by the way, I'm a big fan of yours, but I'm also a big fan of Maya Angelou, the poet. And she said, people will not remember what you said. They won't even remember what you did. They will never forget how you made them feel. And our job in nonprofits and as fundraisers is to make the donor feel like they are the most important person in the world to us.
Agreed.
Laura, we're going to end on 2 money muck guarantees. How's that? Okay.
All right.
The first one's mine. Okay, the first one's mine, and I'm going to say your chances go way up of getting the gift when you ask. And then Laura's going to give you a guarantee. You don't get what you don't ask for.
Love it.
Well, the hour is just flown by. So, and as the slides are flying by here, but this quote I end every show with because it really gives me goosebumps. I grew up during President Kennedy's time. He was a hero of mine. This is what he said at the American University commencement on June 10th, 1963. Laura, I get goosebumps because I think he's speaking right to us August 5th, 2020 in this world. You know, he pointed out that the most basic common link is we all inhabit the same small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we're all mortal. I said, my God, President Kennedy is speaking to us right now. But we've just had a sensational hour by someone, again, who has inspired everybody at the table of philanthropy. That's the professional fundraisers. That's the board members. That's the donors. Thank you for the way you have been such a beacon of positive light for the industry. We're not going to allow you to slow down. You got to pick up the pace. But you made Jim Eskin's dream to come true to do a program with you. Well, thank you again for all the inspiration you've given everybody in philanthropy.
My honor and privilege, Jim. My honor and privilege.
And stay safe.
You too.
And John Largent, it was flawless again. Thank you. And
Thank you,
John's going to be working Lars, the keynoter for the San Antonio Regional Conference coming up in about a month. So you folks will be connecting again. So, and to our nonprofit partners, we're going to post a short written summary right now, and then John does a magic spin act, and then we're going to post the recording and slides on LinkedIn and Facebook, probably after 1 or 2 glasses of wine. So you should get that in about 60 to 75 minutes. Lawler, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, John. Always a pleasure. I miss you, my friend. I hope to see you face to face very soon.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Thank you,
Thank you.
John. And to our everyone, be safe.